The stars outside Orion Prime burned like distant candles in the black sky. The planet below shimmered with silver cities, glowing rivers of light, and tall towers that reached toward the stars. Above it all floated the Galactic Senate Chamber, a structure so large it could be seen from space. It looked like a silver ring wrapped around a glowing crystal. Inside that ring, the future of countless worlds was decided. William Carter stood at the edge of one of the chamber's great viewing platforms. His dark suit felt heavy on his shoulders. His heart beat slow but steady. He had never seen so many alien species gathered in one place. He had never felt so small. The Senate chamber was shaped like a wide circle. Floating seats stretched high above the floor, stacked in rings. Each seat held the leaders and diplomats of hundreds of worlds. Some were tall with skin like glass. Others were small, with glowing eyes. Some floated without legs. Others carried heavy weapons. All of them looked toward the center of the chamber, where the speakers would stand. William took a deep breath and walked toward the small section marked with the flag of Earth. It was the smallest seat in the chamber. Only one chair. Only one microphone. Humanity had just joined the Galactic Federation 5 years ago. They had no allies, no power, no respect. As William sat down, he could hear the whispers. There's the human. What is he doing here again? They should know their place. He had heard it all before. He knew what they thought of Earth. Weak, young, foolish, not ready to stand with the great powers of the galaxy. He had heard those words in every meeting, every gathering, every vote. But today was different. Today, Earth's future was on the line. The Helios trade route, a path through space that carried energy, food, and supplies across the galaxy. Without it, Earth's ships would take twice as long to travel. Their economy would suffer. Their people would struggle. William had come to fight for that route. It was the only reason he was here. A loud hum filled the air as the Senate speaker rose from the center platform. The speaker was an ancient being known as Solarii, a creature made of light and mist. Its voice echoed through the chamber like wind through glass. Senators and delegates, the speaker began, we gather today to hear the petition of Earth. They seek access to the Helios trade route. The moment the words were spoken, laughter broke out across the chamber. William heard it like a wave crashing around him. Some delegates covered their faces to hide their smiles. Others laughed openly. William did not move. He kept his hands folded on the table. He waited. The speaker's voice continued. Earth's representative, William Carter, is present to speak on behalf of his people. The laughter grew louder. Someone shouted from the back, send him back to his little rock. More laughter followed. William's jaw tightened, but he stayed silent. The speaker raised a glowing hand. The chamber slowly fell quiet again. Let us begin, the speaker said. High Speaker Varlon of the Threxian Dominion, you have requested the floor. William looked up toward the highest ring of seats. There stood High Speaker Varlon. His tall, armored body shone under the chamber's lights. His skin was dark and scaled like stone. His eyes were sharp and cold. He wore the golden crest of the Threxian Dominion, the most powerful faction in the Federation. Varlon leaned forward, resting both hands on the rail in front of him. A cruel smile formed on his lips. William knew what was coming. He knew Varlon would not miss the chance to humiliate him. He had seen Varlon do it before. But this time, William promised himself things would be different. He just had to wait for his turn. Varlon's deep voice filled the chamber. It was sharp, cold, and full of pride. He did not rush. He wanted every word to sting. Honored senators, Varlon began, spreading his thick arms wide. We gather here today for a most curious request. He let the words hang in the air, and a low chuckle spread through the crowd. He turned his eyes toward William, who sat alone below. Varlon's smile grew wider. Earth, Varlon said slowly, a small planet on the edge of known space. A world that has brought nothing of value to this Senate. A world that has no fleets, no trade, and no power. He paused again. And yet, they asked for the Helios trade route. The chamber filled with whispers again. Some laughed softly. Others shook their heads. Varlon waited for silence before speaking again. Let me remind you all, Varlon continued, his voice louder now, what the Helios route means. It is not a gift. It is not a favor. It is a lifeline, a path that holds the future of every great world in this chamber. And now, the humans dare to ask for it. He leaned over the rail, pointing down toward William like a king addressing a beggar. They stand here with empty hands. They offer nothing in return. No chips, no resources, no allies, nothing but words. The chamber began to hum with quiet laughter again. Varlin's voice rose even higher. I ask you, senators, what have the humans done to earn such a prize? What have they given to deserve a place among us? They have done nothing but speak of peace and fairness, while bringing nothing to our table. Varlon turned his back on William and raised both hands toward the Senate. I say enough of this waste of time. Let's end this now. Let the vote be taken, and let Earth learn its place. The chamber roared with agreement. Hands pounded on tables. Feet stomped on platforms. The noise filled the air like thunder. William sat still, staring at the table in front of him. He felt the weight of every eye in the chamber pressing down on him. He heard the laughter. He felt the pressure in his chest. But he did not move. Not yet. The speaker raised a glowing hand again, calling for silence. The noise slowly faded until only the hum of the chamber remained. William Carter of Earth, the speaker said softly, you may speak. William stood. His legs felt heavy, but his mind was sharp. He looked up at the thousands of faces above him, some amused, some bored, many already sure of their decision. He knew they expected him to fail. They expected him to stumble. They expected him to leave in shame. He took a deep breath. I will speak, William said firmly, his voice carrying through the silent hall. He stepped forward toward the center platform. Every step felt slow, heavy, final. He turned to face the chamber. His hands rested calmly at his sides. He did not raise his voice. He did not rush. He spoke clearly, simply, and as the first words left his mouth, the laughter stopped. High above, Varlon watched William take the floor. His smile returned, slow and cold. He crossed his thick arms over his chest and leaned back in his seat, as if watching a child try to lift a mountain. The Senate chamber remained still. The laughter had faded, but the air still held the weight of doubt. Most had already made up their minds. Earth had nothing to offer. They believed this speech was only a formality, a small moment before the final rejection. William knew this. He could feel it in the way they looked at him, like he didn't belong, like he was wasting their time. But he also knew one thing they did not. He was ready. He let the silence stretch a little longer. Let them feel the weight of their own expectation. Then, when the moment was right, he began. You have heard many things about Earth, William said. His voice was steady, not loud, but it carried through the hall. Most of you believe those things. Most of you think you know who we are. He looked around the chamber. Faces of all shapes and colors watched him, waiting for him to fall apart. But you are wrong, William continued. A few quiet murmurs rippled through the crowd. Varlon raised one eyebrow, as if amused. William took a step forward. You say we are small. You are right. We are. You say we are new. That is true as well. You say we have no fleets, no allies, no power. He paused. That is also true. Another wave of soft laughter began to spread, but William raised his hand. But you have all forgotten something, he said louder now. You have all forgotten who you were when you first stood here. The laughter stopped again. A few heads turned. Some leaned forward, curious. William pointed to the outer rows of the chamber. The Zalari, he said, naming a tall, green-skinned species seated high above. You were once farmers on a dying world. He turned toward another section. The Krathans, he said, pointing to a group of short, armored beings. Your people lived in caves, hunted by beasts twice your size. He turned again, now facing the Threxian Dominion. And even you, Varlon, William said, his voice sharp but controlled. Your world was once nothing but dust and storms. Your people fought for every breath of air. Varlin's smile faded slightly. William took another step forward. Every great power here started small. Every one of you stood where I stand now. Alone, doubted, weak. The chamber grew quiet again. You speak of what Earth has done, William said. I will tell you. He looked up. raising his voice with strength. We survived our own wars. We healed our broken world. We reached for the stars with nothing but hope and determination. We crossed the dark, alone, with no one to guide us. And when we found you, we came with open hands, not weapons. The room was silent now. William felt the shift. They were listening. We asked for the Helios route not as beggars, but as equals, William said firmly. We ask because we have earned our place, not through power, but through courage. His eyes locked on Varlan's. And we will not be dismissed. The chamber stayed silent. Even Varlan did not move. William lowered his hand and waited. The silence was heavier than the laughter had ever been. And in that moment, William knew he had changed something. The chamber held its breath. William Carter stood alone in the center, his words still floating in the air like distant echoes. The laughter was gone. The smirks were gone. Every eye in the Senate was on him now, not with amusement, but with something colder, something sharper, judgment. High above, Varlan leaned forward in his seat. His smile had faded. His dark eyes narrowed. He did not like what he had heard. William had done something no one expected. He had reminded the great powers of their past. He had taken their laughter and turned it into silence. But Varlan was not finished. He rose again, his heavy armor creaking as he stood. He placed both hands on the rail before him and looked down at William like a predator studying its prey. Well spoken, Varlan said at last, his voice deep and slow. Truly, you have learned to speak like the rest of us. Some weak laughter rippled through the chamber, but it died quickly. Most delegates kept their eyes on William, waiting to see what he would do next. Varlan continued, his tone growing sharper. You speak of courage, Varlan said. You speak of standing as an equal. But words are easy. Any mouth can speak brave things. What proof do you bring? What strength do you offer? Varlan's voice rose, filling the chamber again. Where are your ships, William Carter? Where are your armies? Where are your great alliances? What can Earth give to the Federation other than empty speeches? He stretched out his hand toward the chamber, turning his back to William once again. We Threxians built our power with blood and steel. The Zalari rose from ruin by mastering the stars. The Krathans earned their place with fire and force. He turned back, his sharp teeth showing in a cruel grin. And now, a single man from a single weak world stands here and asks for a place among giants? Varlan leaned closer over the rail. You are nothing but words, human. And words do not move the galaxy. A few voices in the crowd muttered in agreement. Some nodded. The tension in the chamber returned like a rising wave. William stood still. He did not speak. He let Varlan finish. He let the chamber turn cold again. He let them wonder if he would break under the pressure. But he didn't. Instead, he took another step forward, raising his voice once more, clear and steady. You ask what Earth can give, William said. I will tell you. He raised one hand, his fingers curled slightly, as if holding something the others could not see. We offer something you have forgotten, he said. Something no fleet, no army, no weapon can match. The chamber leaned in. Varlan's grin faltered. William lowered his hand, placed it over his heart, and spoke the words that would change everything. We offer the strength to believe in peace when it costs us nothing to choose war. A heavy silence fell again, stronger this time, deeper. William looked slowly around the chamber, letting his words settle in every corner. We have no great fleets, he said, no mighty armies, no bastelayensis. But we stand here, asking not for power, but for a chance to build trust, to build unity, to prove that small does not mean weak, that new does not mean unworthy. He pointed toward Varlan's seat. You speak of power, High Speaker, but even power fades. Fear fades, but trust, real trust, can hold a galaxy together. William stepped back, lowering his hands. And that is what Earth offers. He said no more. He did not need to. The chamber was completely silent. William stood alone, but for the first time, he did not feel small. He felt ready. William stood still, his hands resting at his sides. His voice had finished, but his words hung in the air like a silent storm. The chamber was quiet. The senators, the delegates, even the guards on the far walls. No one moved. Above him, Varlin's face darkened. His claws tapped slowly on the metal rail in front of him. His sharp eyes locked on William, studying him, searching for weakness. But William showed none. The silence pressed on, heavy and thick. No one dared to laugh this time. William broke that silence again, taking one more step toward the center. "You speak of strength," he said, his voice softer but clear. "You speak of power. But there is another kind of strength, the strength to remember who you were." He turned slowly, looking at the rows of alien leaders. "Do you remember the first time you stood here?" William asked them. "Do you remember when your people had nothing but hope? When you stood before stronger worlds and asked for a chance?" He let the words sink in. He could see some delegates shift in their seats. Some lowered their eyes. "Earth is asking for that same chance," William continued. "Nothing more, nothing less." He paused, then added, "But I will tell you what happens if you say no today." The chamber grew still again. Every ear listened. Every eye stayed on him. "If you turn us away," William said, "we will not disappear. We will not give up. We will remember this day, and we will still find a way forward. Alone if we must." He raised his head. His voice grew stronger. "We will build our ships. We will find new paths. We will stand again in this chamber, stronger than before. And when that day comes, you will remember that you could have stood with us today when it mattered most." He stopped. The air felt sharp, like glass about to break. William took a breath, feeling the weight of the moment. He knew his next words were the most important. They would decide everything. He looked straight at the Senate Speaker, then turned to face the whole chamber one last time. And then, in a voice louder than before, he asked the final question. "What kind of federation do you want to be?" He took another step toward them, raising his hand. "Will you stand as a wall that shuts others out? Or will you stand as a bridge that brings new voices in?" He paused, then finished. "Will you choose fear or hope?" The chamber stayed frozen. The words echoed like a heartbeat in the silent hall. William lowered his hand. He had nothing more to say. He had given them everything he had. Now it was their turn. The speaker's glowing hand rose once again. "It is time to decide," the speaker announced. William stood quietly, waiting for the answer that could change Earth's future forever. The chamber began to hum again, but this time it was not laughter or whispers. It was the sound of tension, the sound of decision. William stood still, watching as the senators leaned in toward each other. Some spoke quietly. Some stared at him. Some said nothing at all. Valon did not move. He stood with both hands gripping the metal rail in front of him, his dark eyes locked on William. His expression had changed. His pride had been shaken. His power, for the first time, looked unsure. The speaker raised both hands, calling for order. "The question is clear," the speaker said. Its glowing body flickered softly in the dim light. "Earth has made its request. The Senate must now decide." The chamber screens lit up across the walls. On every screen, the words approve or reject flashed in bold letters. One by one, the delegates began to cast their votes. Lights blinked on their seats, green for approve, red for reject. William's heart pounded in his chest, but he kept his face calm. He watched the lights appear one after another, not knowing which side would win. A green light, then a red, another green, two more red. The lights spread slowly across the chamber. William counted each one, feeling the weight of every choice. The Reds started strong. The larger factions, like the Threxian Dominion, showed their power early. Varlon stood silent, watching as his allies sided with him. William felt his throat tighten. For a moment, it seemed Varlon would win. The Reds were leading. The silence in the chamber grew colder. But then, the Greens began to spread. The smaller factions, the outer worlds, the quiet voices that no one listened to. They voted green, one after another. Some of them looked at William as they voted, their faces unreadable but steady. The Greens grew, climbing higher. The Reds tried to keep ahead, but the gap began to close. Varlon shifted in his seat. His sharp fingers tapped faster on the rail. His eyes narrowed even more. He whispered something to the delegate beside him, but no one else could hear. The chamber watched the numbers change. Green, red, green, green, red, green. The final row of lights appeared. The chamber held its breath. The last few votes would decide everything. William's hands curled into fists at his sides, though his face stayed calm. One green, another green, a red, another green, and then the final light blinked. Green. The chamber's great walls flashed the result. Decision approved. William let out a slow breath. He had done it. Earth had done it. The silence in the chamber broke. But this time, it was not with laughter. It was with soft murmurs, surprised faces, and quiet nods. William stood taller, looking up at the Senate one last time. The speaker's voice rang out again. The motion passes. Earth is granted access to the Helios trade route. The words felt like thunder in William's heart. He had come here alone. He had stood against the strongest voice in the chamber. And he had won. Varlon stood frozen, his jaw clenched tight. He said nothing. He did not cheer. He did not move. His power had failed him, and he knew it. William turned and walked back to his small seat. He stood beside it for a moment, looking down at the symbol of Earth, the blue and green planet he had sworn to protect. He nodded to himself. The hardest part was over. Humanity had taken its first real step into the stars. He raised his head one last time and looked around the chamber. This time, no one laughed. Many watched him in silence. Some nodded with quiet respect. William Carter, the quiet man from the small world called Earth, had become the voice they could not ignore. William Carter stood still for a moment longer. The weight of what had just happened was settling deep inside him. The silence in the chamber was not cold now. It felt different, heavy, but not with mockery or doubt. It felt like change. The Speaker of the Senate stood once more in the center. Its glowing body flickered softly, like a star breathing in the dark. The Speaker turned its light toward William. "William Carter of Earth," the Speaker said, "you have spoken well. The Senate has made its choice. Your people have earned the right to walk the Helios trade route." William bowed his head slightly. He had no grand words left to say. He had already given them all. The Speaker raised its hand again. "The session is now closed." Slowly, the senators began to rise from their seats. Some walked out in silence. Some stayed seated, their faces thoughtful. A few looked down at William with something close to respect. Varlon did not speak again. He stood for a long moment, gripping the railing tightly. Then he turned, his long black cloak trailing behind him as he left the chamber without another word. William watched him go. He knew this would not be the last time their paths would cross. Varlon had lost today, but a man like him would not give up so easily. Still, William felt no fear. He had faced him once. He could do it again. William left his small desk and walked toward the chamber doors. The long hallway beyond was quiet. No guard stopped him. No delegates mocked him. He walked alone, but the feeling of being small was gone. He reached the docking platform where his ship waited. The window beside the ship showed the wide curve of Orion Prime below, glowing like a jewel in the darkness. He paused and looked out, thinking of Earth. He could almost see it in his mind. The blue oceans, the green lands, the people waiting for news. He had done it for them. He placed a hand on the window, as if reaching toward home. They had laughed at him when he arrived. They had doubted him, mocked him, and tried to push him aside. But in the end, his voice had been heard. Earth's future was now open to the stars. He turned, walked onto his ship, and gave the order to set course for home.